Adam Lerner, and today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about balancing ambient light with flash photography. This is also off-camera flash photography utilizing only one flash, and in this case I was using a flash with an umbrella. So here we are at Nico Restaurant in New York City, and the challenge was to photograph the manager, who you'll see in a moment, this guy named Kobe, at his restaurant. And typically when I do these, I pick like 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 different scenarios in the restaurant to do a shot. One of the obvious shots was photographing him at the window at the front of the restaurant with the restaurant sign displayed. Now, the challenge of photographing against a window, of course, when you're using flash, is getting the flash or the reflection or the umbrella in the window. That is a lot of post-processing for what could otherwise be a very simple shot. So I thought to myself, okay, I'd like to shoot this on an angle, and that also allows for us to get the Nico sign in the frame. Position him perhaps by this column and set the umbrella along the same plane as the window so that the flash is pushing toward him but not toward the window. That was my basic setup, and I can put a lighting diagram up there as well. So very first thing I did is I wanted to meter for ambient light so that I would get the Nico sign exposed properly. So I put the camera in aperture priority mode, and one of the things that I also knew is that I wanted to be shooting at f4 because I wanted to have a reasonable depth of field. Now in doing so, at 1/200th of a second and f4, I had to bump the ISO up to 1250 in order for this to have a proper exposure to my liking. So that was the ambient exposure test shot. Then I put him in there, and I liked what I had there. I liked that just magically, you know, we had the reflection of his silhouette in the sign, which was kind of interesting. And there was a few details about this shot that I wasn't crazy about. I mean, even here I had the ice bucket moved, and in this, excuse me, let me go back to where we started. And in this shot, there was the napkin and some chopsticks over there. And, we did a few more until I got the exposure more to my liking, and I got the light on his face really nice, keeping the reflection in the window, and obviously removing the napkin and chopsticks from the table here to keep the clutter down. Now, unfortunately, there was scaffolding over the building, so you've got, kind of this unsightly stuff here. But, in a lot of ways for me, this kind of worked. However, this wasn't like the shot. This was just one of the different scenarios. So another outtake series from this was I decided, these windows are pretty epic. We've got these floor-to-ceiling windows that take up the entire back wall. Let's see what we can do to put him here and try to get the Nico sign. So I exposed ambient for the background. This was at 1/100th of a second, and I was letting in a little bit too much light. The background was a little bit too exposed for me. So I took another shot, and I just bumped it up to 1/200th, and I put him there, and I had my light very much off camera over here. However, we can see a little bit of it in the umbrella, which was really hard to reconcile. But I was thinking, maybe I could live with that. Okay, so I took that shot, and I have the flash off to camera left and just lighting up, the side of him here, and it was a little bit dark there. So I went and I exposed another one there, and that was much more to my liking. However, I wasn't 100% sure that I wanted to have the front of the stairwell, because this is the stairs. Basically, the street is behind him. You walk up a flight of stairs, which is the top of the stairwell that he's resting his hands on. So it's a lot of details that were maybe a little bit distracting. So I ultimately shot in a little bit closer, and I got this. And at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, I like the exposure. I think it's kind of interesting how the background is in focus. You've got the sign of the restaurant hanging over there. And, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, there's a little bit too much going on in the sides here. You've got the bucket, you've got the reflection over here, you've got this phone number, you've got these little details of the plant, some of the curtains, all this kind of gobbledygook. Okay, so I decided to do a crop. So this was that image cropped. And again, ultimately this became an outtake shot, but I liked it as a portrait, and I thought that it was pretty interesting having the background exposed as well. So you've got all these different kind of planes, focal planes over here, and I just thought it was kind of an interesting portrait. It wasn't the ultimate portrait that the client selected to use, but I did find it to be interesting, and it is a good example of how you can meter for your background and then dial in the right amount of flash, pushing that light onto your subject to have a decent balance. So that's basically it. This is one flash, one light photography. We've got one light off camera. I was using a Pocket Wizard, a radio controller to manage that light. I was doing TTL, but managing the light manually, which, we'll get into all that, at another time. But the real point of this, video here is to talk to you guys a little bit about understanding your ambient light and metering for it. Now, we could have metered this completely differently. We could have blown out that background. We could have made that background really super dark and even more epic. But for me, it was just about a balance, and that's what we got here. So that's it for now. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below or email adamlernerphoto@gmail.com, and we'll see you soon.